Multiple AEW talents have been suspended following the backstage incident following the AEW All Out press conference on Sunday. Now, you're going to hear some names in a minute, and there are some whose future with AEW still seems uncertain. We'll get to that very shortly. This very breaking news video after numerous reports and some speculation on the fates of those involved in the melee backstage. Sports Illustrated have dropped a report in the last half an hour or so, haven't they, Jack?
They have. Justin Barrasso of Sports Illustrated saying that punishment for that backstage fight will include suspensions for every person involved. There's a list at the moment of those receiving suspensions. I'll run through it now. Kenny Omega, Matt and Nick Jackson, the Young Bucks, Pat Buck, Christopher Daniels, the head of talent relations, Michael Nakazawa and Brandon Cutler, obviously two friends of the Elite or affiliated with the Elite as well.
Some of those names are a bit of a surprise. Obviously, we knew that Kenny Omega and Matt and Nick Jackson, from what we had heard, were very much the centerpiece of what went on backstage. Reports of them bursting into CM Punk's locker room and getting into a verbal, then physical confrontation with him. Pat Buck was a name that's come up a few times, only in the last sort of few hours.
Yeah.
There's somebody also in the wrong for everything that went on, but we don't truly know what role he played.
No, yeah.
Same with Michael Nakazawa and Christopher Daniels and indeed Brandon Cutler.
Yes. Also, reports emerged quite recently as well, I believe, that, can't remember her full name, the AEW legal person. Oh, man.
Their legal team.
Yeah, basically, where she was, that woman specifically was also...
check it on my phone.
Was also
I'm not
present,
being unprofessional.
Was also present
on my phone.
No, we would never dare be unprofessional.
Never dare.
But she was also apparently present for part of the confrontation as well. Apparently also there's going to be, we'll talk a little bit about the other big name that we're waiting to hear about, but also an external third-party investigation will be conducted to examine what has transpired. Hangman Page has already left the building, Sports Illustrated learned, which I believe was already reported by the likes of PW Insider and Fightful Select as well. The likes of Page and FTR and people were gone because they weren't needed for the presser.
Can go back, it's Mega Parek, who is AEW's Chief Legal Officer and EVP, according to the Wrestling News, was present for a portion of the CM Punk Elite locker room altercation. We're not saying that they're involved in they're not suspended, but we're just saying that an additional part of that story in terms of who was around then, they were as well,
that's quite important.
In amongst that. And as you say, Adam Page had already gone from the building. His involvement was only literally through CM Punk name dropping him as sort of a fire starter of sorts for all of this.
So speaking of CM Punk then, Sports Illustrated also say that multiple sources have shared that CM Punk and Ace Steel, the other side of this melee, will either be among those suspended or will no longer be with the company by the end of Wednesday.
Jeez.
Punk apparently met with Tony Khan on Tuesday, so the two, say Sports Illustrated, had an opportunity to discuss how that exit could be handled. So,
I remember reading about that yesterday. There was a few sort of trusted sources on Twitter that had come through and said that CM Punk and Tony Khan were having a meeting regarding what happened. And whilst all those names that you heard at the beginning there have, according to Sports Illustrated, they are receiving suspensions. CM Punk and Ace Steel's names weren't among them, which I was very surprised about because obviously this all happened because of sort of CM Punk's comments in the press conference, regardless of sort of why they happened in the first place. But certainly his words in the press conference are what caused all of this. There's more to be said about why he said them, but still. And then Ace Steel, who all we've heard about Ace Steel since Sunday is he was biting during this fight backstage. He was biting Kenny
allegedly
Omega.
Bit Kenny Omega allegedly threw a chair that hit Nick Jackson. I think the reason, I'm assuming anyway from this, that the reason their names aren't mentioned with those who are apparently going to be definitely receiving these suspensions is because they'll either be suspended or let go. So I guess maybe that's why they're not included amongst the Elite and everything. Because at first when I read this, I was thinking, wow, has CM Punk just totally got away scot-free with this because his name wasn't mentioned. But then that part of the Sports Illustrated story seems to imply that actually it'll be a suspension or a firing, basically. But the fact that he had an opportunity to meet with Tony Khan and they could apparently in this wording here discuss how the exit would be handled. Does that mean that Tony's, I don't want to kind of fan the flames too much, but does that mean that Tony's still affording Punk more leeway than he would others?
It certainly seems that way. I mean, it's obviously CM Punk, and at the end of the day, no one's above doing anything like that to anyone. But the situation is that CM Punk is your top draw. He's the world champion,
of course,
and I guess that's not discounting the fact that Omega and the Bucks are the EVPs of the company, and then obviously Christopher Daniels, his talent relations, and not discounting any of those roles. But CM Punk has very much been a figurehead of AEW, so I guess that is a situation that needs to be handled differently. And to go back to the impetus of all of this, like CM Punk's initial frustration comes from his name being brought up in a promo from Adam Page. And rumors of the EVPs discussing things with reporters about him.
He believed that the elite, essentially the EVPs, were the ones to leak stuff about Colt Cabana, essentially, himself and Colt Cabana. The EVP title itself is quite an important talking point here, I think, because I saw a retweet that Benji of North Wrestling on the Landed Gentry.
Wow.
He offered quite an interesting perspective on it on Twitter, which he retweeted something that said, I think he was trying to forget about the star power of CM Punk and everything. What's happened here is that three men in a senior position have burst into a room which belongs to an employee, and that raises all kinds of legal questions in more sort of looking at CM Punk as in a kind of self-defense sort of way, I suppose. But again, we don't know exactly how the brawl went down, so it's hard to really clarify. But just from that point of view, yes, these three guys overall are in a senior position, and even though they were provoked and maybe he called them out and said, come and talk to me if you want, in a very incendiary sort of way, the fact remains that they are still EVPs and possibly can't be doing stuff like that, essentially.
But again, like, we haven't yet heard from anybody who was there about like the door being kicked down and some of the inner workings of that. We've obviously heard lots from reporters who were nearby and kind of could see there was something going on behind them that they didn't quite know, but then other reports from other places have sort of filled in the gaps, and Sports Illustrated has now added to that, and which is why we felt the need to bring up what Sports Illustrated bring it up, so to kind of to summarize that one more time, and then we'll sort of end on some final thoughts. Sports Illustrated has learned that suspensions for every person involved in the backstage melee at All Out are being handed out, and that list includes Kenny Omega, Matt Jackson, Nick Jackson, Pat Buck, Christopher Daniels, Michael Nakazawa, and Brandon Cutler.
Just in terms of final thoughts, I guess the pressing question now, maybe, just in terms of immediacy, is what's Dynamite going to look like tonight? It will presumably not involve any of these guys if they're suspended, but will it be even referenced at all? Can they get away with not referencing it? Do they have to reference it almost?
I'm one to believe that AEW would probably lean in and somehow reference this. I mean, we pull ourselves away completely, and is it a work?
I'm struggling now to believe that it's a work.
The more this goes on, like, I think because AEW have played this card so many times, and one can't help think that still lingers in the air a little bit. But again, like I said in the video this morning, like, if all of this is a work, you've done it to spite a major comeback in your company.
That's what makes me think it's not.
Yeah.
It overshadowed the MJF story. It involves quite heavily Colt Cabana, who's not really involved in that many storylines these days. It all seems too tenuous in certain aspects to not be real in relation to what goes on camera, but it's hard to tell. But I really think as more and more time goes on, this does seem legit.
we no doubt will have some idea on sort of the fate of Ace Steel and CM Punk as part of AEW before our time today is done. Because who needs sleep anyway? But our main story, Kenny Omega, Matt and Nick Jackson, Pat Buck, Christopher Daniels, Michael Nakazawa and Brandon Cutler are reportedly to be suspended, according to Sports Illustrated, with CM Punk and Ace Steel's fate uncertain at this time. More throughout the day at cultaholic.com. Stay safe. Love you. Bye.